My fellow countrymen and women, once more, my apologies for the technical hitch. I think there was a lot of background hissing sounds which complicated the broadcast. Also, my apologies for starting extremely very late. I had to hold a meeting with top advisors and experts to be able to determine the scope of the massacre in Dongan Mantung. And so we completed the meeting extremely very late. But I want to go straight to exactly what we have decided to do. You know, we have the killings of our people, the massacres, the ongoing genocide is gradually being normalized in our psyche, and it simply becomes statistics, almost like people die here every day. And so we publish those statistics. But we have had an important meeting where we have discussed how to translate these informations that we put out there on the massacres of our people, the systematic brutality of Cameroon against our civilians, into some form of political actions that can stir the international system for action. I will talk about these in some depth, but talk about also our own domestic uh, actions that we really need to take to ensure that these massacres don't continue. We will be dispatching a top leadership team from the Human Rights and the Secretary for Human Rights and Humanitarian Services to Brussels next week to speak with the unrepresented nations and peoples organization. And our aim is to gain access to other international institutions and nation states that are member of the of UNPO. And those member states can give us access to other countries so that we can exactly see what to do with these gruesome reports that we've compiled from the beginning of our campaign for the restoration of our independence. Now, when we talk about the existence of genocide in Ambazonia, genocide is a serious crime. It's a serious crime because of the intent factor. So, how will you distinguish war crimes, crimes against humanity, and crimes of genocide, which has universal jurisdiction in terms of its prosecution? Genocide is particularly gruesome because the perpetrators of genocide plan it, have a political agenda for it, a motivation, and they use physical elimination either to achieve two objectives: wipe out the entire population or partially wipe out the entire population. And the reason for this is always engineered by anger. We take World War II, for example, that gave the birth of the concept of genocide, the killings of Jews by Adolf Hitler. It was systematic in nature. Camps were built across Europe, in Buchenwald, in Poland, and other places. These camps became camps of concentration where Jews were shipped from across different parts of Europe. They were shaved, they were marked, and they were systematically eliminated. But there is something also about genocide, and this is critical for all of us to understand why we have named the actions of Cameroon in our country genocide. Genocide begins by dehumanization. Crimes of genocide are not crimes that are simply committed by soldiers who kill others. They are crimes committed sometimes in close proximity by people who know one another. They are committed in such a horrendous manner that it, it undermines any principles of the protection of human dignity. In essence, You need to dehumanize those you want to eliminate, like calling them les anglophones, like calling them les ennemis dans la maison, by, by calling them 2 cubes of sugar. What you do is you take away their humanity, which is essential for the protection of life. In close proximity killings, you need acts of dehumanization to turn that person into an animal that gives you the justification for their elimination. The dehumanization of Ambazonians has begun for a very long time, where we were simply seen as a group of people with less dignity, less humanity. So we were categorized first as les anglophones. In that way, our humanity is snatched from us. We are given a less respectable status that gives the perpetrators of crimes against us the possibility of committing those crimes without having an iota of guilt. Now, after the dehumanization, it is simply very easy for Cameroon to move into our villages, burn down those villages systematically. We may classify those burnings as war crimes. We may classify issues like systematic torture of our people like crimes against humanity. We may classify the capture of combatants and close proximity execution as war crimes. But the killing of children, the killing of women, the close proximity of these killings are systematic in nature, reaching the threshold of the crime of genocide. What has happened in Dongan and Mantong is abominable. And I can assure you, it should engineer outrage from each and every one of us, from every people across the globe. The murder of children. And then the attempt to cover up, the attempt to blame others, shows that they understand the gravity of the crime that they have committed. My fellow Ambazonians, we should never normalize. We should never normalize the killings of our people. We should never use the justification of war. We are the ones who've gone through torment from Cameroon. We are the ones who've gone through a lot of pain. We are the ones who should be angry. Yet, we haven't risen up as the victims against Cameroonians in our homeland. We haven't murdered Cameroonians. We haven't treated them with less kindness than we will treat our own people. Even Nigerians who found home in Ambazonia, whose country kidnapped our finest men and women and deported them under circumstances that defied the concept of humanity. We haven't risen against Nigerians in our homeland. We are the aggrieved party in this conflict. We are the victims in this conflict. But why has it been impossible for us to defy the logic of the respect of human dignity, to act in ways that are inconsistent with its protection against those who have hurt us? Why has it been impossible for us to systematically target Cameroonians, some of which may be accomplices, internal enablers collaborators to the brutal murders of our people. Because it's simply not Ambazonian. It's simply not Ambazonian to act in ways that defy the very logic for which we have risen up as a people to write a new chapter in our long journey. But why has it been so easy for the country that took over our own, occupied it, exploited its resources to rebuild its own, feed its people, build its army to deploy in our country to rob us of the right to life? Why has it been easy for Cameroon to exercise such level of brutality? And why has the world not felt the same kind of outrage which we saw in the aftermath of the Second World War, or 22 years ago, 26 years ago, after the genocide in Rwanda? Why has Cameroon gone down to this level of brutality, where it has burned down our villages? It has systematically attacked civilians. It's because they have lost. When they saw what you did on the 1st of October, when they saw what you did on the 22nd of September 2017, on the 1st of October 2017, when they saw your resistance, how you gathered yourself across the globe, congregated in front of parliaments, pushing yourself through those parliaments, rewriting the history of our country in the best pages of our own history books. They knew it was over for them. You celebrated your Independence Day because we asked you, we told you, once it was restored, proclaimed, and reaffirmed, this generation has just one mandate: to defend. And you've done so, and done so brilliantly, even under attack, respecting international rules, norms, and the protection of human dignity in times of war and peace. This conduct of yours, your defiance, your victory, the control you now exercise over your land, the absolute rejection of the mandate to govern by an alien system that was not supposed to be around, has angered the occupier of your country, because they had so much belief in themselves. They had so much reduced you to a level that they were quite damn sure they had written your own story. And suddenly, a generation rose up from the dusty streets of Mutengene, from Kwakwa to Bisongabang, right up to Ndop, to Yelum, to say no. The country that gave the woman the right to vote under the British colony in 1959 cannot be reduced to a beggarly nation by a country that we gave them political asylum, that we feed them. The country that had organized 3 successive elections, 2 direct elections and 1 by-election to bring in Augustine Gumjua, could not be seen to be occupied and treated with such a level of bestiality by one that it provides more than 60% of its GDP. Those were your inspirations. Those were the bedrocks upon which you laid claim to the land of your birth. They've gotten so angry because you've humiliated them. You've defeated them. Unlike every retreating army, whether we found it under the regime of Adolf Hitler, whether we saw it under the regime of Habyarimana. They leave behind a wake of death, destruction, and sadness. And that's what we experienced in Dongamanton with the brutal murder of our children, the elimination of the lives of our women, our moms, dads, and brothers. My people, the sun has risen over Amazonia. It will never set again until the last soldier of the occupying regime walks back across the Mongo, put their legs between their own legs, and kiss goodbye to Ambazonia. I call upon you to remember all those who've laid their lives for Ambazonia, the brave soldiers of our war of independence, the women who on a daily basis have to dig graves to bury theirs. Never to give up, never to doubt that you've reclaimed your future, that despite the hurdles you find on your way, remember this today. Ambazonia is free and free forever. And for all those who have exacted such pain and humiliation, we will hold them accountable. For you, the international system, in invoking the decision to recognize Croatia as an independent country, the Vatican observed the resistance of Croatia. It observed the pain that the Croatian people had gone through under the Yugoslavian regime. It concluded that based on such resistance, based on the elections, the results of a referendum, based on the anger and the pain that the Croatian people had gone through, it was absolutely impossible for Croatia to remain subject to Yugoslavian domestic rule again. Against all odds, the Vatican recognized Croatia as an independent country. This should be a message to the international system. Cameroon is defeated. In more than 2 elections, our people have made it absolutely clear we are not given the mandate to govern to an alien regime that does not represent our interests. Our people have resisted Cameroon for the past 3 years across the 13 states of our homeland. Our people have shown with absolute determination that it is endgame, like the Vatican did for Croatia. It is time for the world to recognize Ambazonia as an independent state. Work with us to set up a transitional authority that will begin preparing for the day of governance, bringing together our finest men and women, instituting a post-conflict and reconciliation system, a post-conflict and justice system that will bring relief to all the women and children, families that have been so battered by Cameroon. That's the only way forward. You can only delay it. You can never deny it. My fellow people, remain steadfast. And let all of us across the globe, wherever you may be, observe a minute of silence on behalf of all those who've lived their lives so we may yet have a homeland of our own. God bless you all. God bless Ambazonia.